In the last topic, not in the last section, all the way back in the last topic, we introduced the idea of two different types of errors that you can have in your programs: syntax errors and logical errors. And back in that topic, we went more in depth with the syntax errors, being, things like more or less kind of like typos or misuse of the programming language. And we even had a couple of videos where we showed how you could use the tools in an IDE to systematically hunt down and fix those syntax errors. Well, now we're going to look at logical errors. Now, logical errors can be a lot more difficult to hunt down and fix. Basically what they are is where your program does something that it's not supposed to. It may perform the wrong set of instructions, or a very simple telltale, of course, is that it produces the wrong answer and everything like that. But fortunately, IDEs do have tools for helping you to debug logical errors. And what we're going to be looking at in this video is are breakpoints. So breakpoints are a tool to help you find logical errors so that you can fix them. More specifically, we're going to be looking at breakpoints in Eclipse, how to use breakpoints in Eclipse. Now, if you watch the video all the way through and you're like, well, I'm still not quite sure how this is going to help me debug a logical error, this is just the very beginning. You haven't learned a whole lot with the programming. The purpose of this video is more or less to demonstrate what a breakpoint is, what it does, and how to create and use them. The basics, essentially, the basic mechanics of using breakpoints. And as the course goes through, there will be other times where we will have videos to show you, as you learn more material, say, okay, see, so here's how you can use a breakpoint with this, and how you can use a breakpoint with that, and everything. So don't sweat that too much. Again, this is mostly this video is mostly just to show you the mechanics of using breakpoints in Eclipse, the basic mechanics. And I've got Eclipse open. You may recognize this from the last video. I believe it's the comments video. And in the comments video, we did that, since they work the same in Eclipse, we did that in Visual Studio. And what I've done then is copy that source code that we had in Visual Studio into Eclipse. So you may not have this already in Eclipse if you're going through the whole process with Eclipse. But if you did go through with the comment thing, it should look something like this. So again, I've copied that in here. There's a couple of things that we need to do first. We need to comment this out. It'll make this video flow a little better. But also, this is used in Visual Studio. This is not going to work right. If you notice, it had like a little bug symbol there. So we need to comment that out, and just so that you can have a little more to see, what we're going to do is uncomment. If you remember from the last video, that's the reason we did it this way, is so that you can take this multi-line comment and just move the close of that up here, and now all of this is uncommented. Well, this is still a comment, but it's single line. Anyway, so we'll do that. Okay, so we're about to get to it, but first I must note that if you are using Eclipse in Linux, which is, if you're using Eclipse, this is most likely, or in Mac, it's going to look a little different than what you see in this video, because we're in Windows. Eclipse in Windows for C++ actually has a bug in it, and I'll go in more in depth at the end of the video. At the end of the video, I'll demonstrate that bug and show you the workaround. But the workaround involves using an external console, so you'll see an extra screen come up here. But if you are in Linux or Mac, everything should work fine in this little console. Or again, you can always there it is, maximize it so that you can see more of the screen at one point in time, and restore to get it back to this view. All right. What is a breakpoint? This is pretty much the key for this video. A breakpoint is something that you put in your program that says, okay, stop the program here, I want to check out what's going on. That's basically what it is. And fortunately, they're very easy to create. We're going to create a breakpoint here. So in Eclipse, you can go into this little margin just to the left of the line numbers there and double click. Okay, hopefully you can see that little blue dot. That is a breakpoint. I'm going to put another one right here, and I'm going to put another one right here. And so what this is telling the program or the debugger to do is say, okay, stop when you get here. More specifically, it's going to stop at the very beginning. It's going to stop before this statement. It's going to stop before this is executed. So it's like at the very, very beginning of this line is where it's going to stop. And you can put these breakpoints basically anywhere you want, except, well, it's not going to work quite right if you put it in, because this line is blank. And also the same thing if you put it at a line where there's comments and everything. Also, it turns out, and I'm not going to go into depth as to why here, but if you put one here, that's not really going to work right either. And it's yeah, I'm just not going to go into that. But in most places where you have a statement, you're going to be able to put a breakpoint, and you'll get a good feel for that the more you use breakpoints. Right. Now, unfortunately, this is a little more complex, not quite as straightforward as it is in Visual Studio, but it's pretty neat actually. But what we need to do here is to debug. So we're going to use this little thing. It looks like a green tick. Actually, it's supposed to be a beetle, but in this small little icon to me looks like a green tick. But when we do this, something's going to happen. So I want to show you very quick something you may want to make note of. If this is the first time you've done the green tick, then you may not see this here. If you don't, it should add it here shortly, and I'll show you where. But if you still have problems getting it to show up, you can click on Open Perspective, and there's the green tick, and so that will add it, and then add the button over here. So that's how you can get to it. Cancel. So we're going to use the green tick. It says debug my first program 2. That's the project. Okay, this is the file main.cpp, but the project is called my first program 2. So we're going to debug this. We've made some changes, so I'm going to click on OK, and hopefully everything should go well. Yeah, it just says warning, unused variable. We remember that from a previous video, right? Okay, this kind of launch, this is where this comes up, is the debug perspective. That's what I was just talking about up here. So hopefully this little screen will come up for you. Sometimes it may not, but hopefully it will. If it doesn't, then you're going to need to create this and then click over to it. But when you say yes, it will automatically go, see, everything looks different. Here's your source code down over here, and you've got some stuff going on. If you're in Linux or Mac and the little internal console is working well, as it should, you'll want to pay attention to this right here. But so you've got your source code, you've got your console area, but also pay attention to this up here. All right. you've got names and values. If we look, so this is where a lot of the goodness of breakpoints comes in, and we'll show you that here in just a second. Note here how this is highlighted, and there's actually a little symbol here, but it's hard to see in this thing. Current instruction pointer right there. So this is where we've stopped, right there where that little cursor is, before this has happened. Okay, before this has happened. And you wouldn't see anything in your console at this point either. This external console you see that we need to as the workaround for Eclipse, for C++ and Windows. They say it doesn't have anything either. So we can switch back to here. So you say, okay, great, I've stopped, I've seen this, whatever. This value, by the way, is just garbage. So what next? Okay, here, let's see, already running. Where is the little, there it is, that's it, resume. So resume, if you click this, what it will do, for the most part, it will keep running your program until it gets to the next breakpoint. And that's how the breakpoints work. Okay, it will keep running until it hits the next breakpoint. Just like it went ahead and ran all of this, it's going to stop at the breakpoint. The program is like frozen right where it is, so that you can check out what's in it. And then it'll go to the next breakpoint, and then you can say, okay, how did everything change? Where am I? All right, so this is a key point. Pay attention. This is a key point. This is how those breakpoints can really work for you and help you to identify and fix logical errors. Because you can go back to your logic, hopefully where you planned your logic. Remember all that planning the logic, and check and see what's going on at these breakpoints. You can see where something goes wrong. There may be a problem with the logic that you've planned out, but still you can still identify, okay, this is where my program is doing something wrong. All right, let me continue again so that you can see this process. Now I said that it would go to the next, it would keep running until the next breakpoint, and it did. Oh yeah, so you should see something here now if you're Linux or Mac, but with the workaround we have an external console, and there it is. Now it's showing my first program works because it went through this statement. Now we haven't covered this yet in the course, exactly what that means, but you do know from the previous videos, right, that this is going to output that to the screen, and it has stopped here, right there at the beginning, and it's all highlighted in green. So we will continue again, and this is where I meant to say, and I said it would keep running and everything. Well, wait a minute, we got another breakpoint down here, but it's still on this line. Why is that? Again, we haven't covered the details of this, but you know this is where it gets input from the user. You know that from the previous videos. That's where it gets input from the user, and you would actually see this down here in Linux and Mac if it's working correctly. But with the external console here, it's actually waiting for input, which we can enter. We can enter whatever number you want to enter. A 7. We'll hit enter. Okay, now this is glowing. Go back. Now this is the thing. We get back. Okay, now that we've entered that, and so it keeps running. Here it has hit this breakpoint. But notice here you've got your pause. Oh, I hate that it didn't show this up. But anyway, this is the point. We'll talk more about the all of this not in the not too distant future in the course. But the point is that you see how I said that was a garbage value. Now we entered the 7, and it's right there. And when we first came back to this screen, I don't know if it will still show up. It's not. This value showed up as in yellow. It was highlighted yellow so that you could see that that value had changed. So I'm hoping you can see here now how breakpoints can help you find logical errors. Basically, there are ways for you to stop your program in different places to see, where it is at that point in time, and then how it changes when it goes to the next breakpoint. So that way you can more pinpoint or at least narrow down exactly where your program is going astray. So that makes it a whole lot easier for you to determine, oh, well, why in the world is my program doing this? Well, you might kind of look at your logic and figure, and hopefully, that might be a fairly easy thing for you to figure out. But this is not entirely systematic, but it is a very powerful tool for you to identify where something has gone wrong. There's a couple of other things before we finish up with this part, and I get on to that bug. If I hit continue again, so we're at this breakpoint right now. If I hit continue again, or resume, I'm sorry, it's called. If I hit resume, here it goes ahead and finishes, so it's done. To remove a breakpoint here, I can't remember if I mentioned that. You can just double click it again and it'll go away. So yeah, double click to create, double click, go away. That easy. So I'm going to do this again because, like I said, there's a couple. Well, so it just finished and everything's okay. We're going to run it again. We're going to debug again, and there comes my little thing. If you're in the middle of debugging, all right, if you're in the middle of debugging and you either get stuck or you want to stop or you want to go back and do something else, there's the handy dandy cancel or stop button that we've showed you in that other perspective if you get stuck in a program. So we're going to go ahead and click stop there. I've got my antivirus off and Windows is not happy about it. Remember, if you ever do cut your antivirus off, make sure you're not connected to the internet. So we stopped and everything's back here, and so there's nothing up here anymore. Terminated exit, it probably shouldn't be 0 there, but anyhow, it doesn't matter. We've canceled and we've got out of this. Well, you might say, well, that's fine, but I really liked the way that was laid out before. How do we get back to that? Well, remember up here, this little button, see the green tick is highlighted. To get back, you just need to click on that little button, and voila, you're back to this screen. So you can go ahead and get back to work with all of that stuff if you like. Note our little breakpoints are still here. I'm going to get rid of them just in case I forget for some other time. And there you go. That's it with breakpoints. Pretty straightforward. Again, it's a tool for narrowing down where logical errors are occurring, because you can look at specific points inside your program to see where things are going wrong. I'm going to go ahead and close this, exit Eclipse. Now, I did tell you that we're using that external console in this video because we're recording in Windows, and that's a workaround for a bug. You don't have to worry about, or shouldn't have to worry about that if you're using Eclipse in Linux or Mac. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go undo, not in the video. I'm going to pause the recording, and I'm going to go back and undo that workaround. And when I come back, I'll show you what that bug is, what that problem is, and how you can do the workaround. That is to say, how to create that external console if you like. All right. I've disabled the workaround that I was telling you about, so that you can see what happens if you don't do it. And just to emphasize again, this is the workaround for for using breakpoints with Eclipse when you're using breakpoints with C++. When using Eclipse for Windows. So it's kind of a specific thing, but it's worth taking a look at this, if you are one of those people that are using Eclipse for Windows for this course, otherwise you won't be able to do breakpoints correct. And I'm about to show you why. Here's our regular program and everything. I'm going to go back to green tick view. All right, or perspective as they call it here. And let's go ahead and put back in our breakpoints. So let's see, we had one here, and you just double click to add the breakpoints. We had one here, and we had one here. Okay, and let's start. Now remember, like I said, I said something about the external console, so pay attention, because right now what I'm calling the internal console, I'm talking about this thing right here, which you can go ahead and maximize or restore. Remember, don't minimize it, then you got to go figure out how to get everything restored back. But anyway, restore, and that'll take you back to this. So we'll pay attention down here to see what happens if you don't use that little external pop-up thing that looks like, that extra screen that comes up if you're using Visual Studio. Okay, we're going to hit the green tick. All right, and it stopped here. Now remember from earlier in the video, that means it's stopping before this, so we don't see anything yet because it hasn't output. We're going to resume. Okay, it goes to here, and sure enough, look, my first program works. Now, if you remember when we went through this earlier in the video, we would hit resume, and then we had to go in and enter a number. Wait a minute, it's all the way down here now. If we look, 57. Okay, so here's the issue. It's specific to Windows, and it has something to do with the way in C++ the input and output streams work, more specifically like well, in this case, the input stream. So when it hit, if you're in, I'm going to call it debug mode, okay, what I've been calling green tick mode. If you're in the debug mode, you're going to encounter this, whether you have breakpoints or not. When you're in that mode, when you're actually using the debugger, it's not going to pick up on any input. Okay, it's not going to pick up. There's something we'll visit later called getLine and stuff, but it uses CN. But the point is that it's just going to assign a value. I'm not sure where the value comes from. It's not always 57. That's not really important. The point is that it will assign a value and keep going for your input. And if you can't control your input, how in the world are you going to debug logical errors? See, it's going to be next to impossible. Because anyway, so that is the reason here why you need a workaround. Again, if you're in Windows and debugging C++, all right, the problem may not exist for some compilers. If you used a compiler different than what we showed you, you may not have this problem, but I think quite likely you will, because again, it has to do with the way C++ handles input and output under the Windows operating system. Anyway, not to go on too far, we can go ahead and do continue. So you see, yeah, that we've got to fix this. And from early in the video, the way we did that was to use an external console. Because this internal console, that input is not going to be handled correctly. We have to go to an external console that Windows is controlling, and so that the input is handled correctly. All right. Now, it's not, don't worry, it's not like crazy hard. It is a tad bit tedious, but just follow along with me and you'll be fine. So you click on Run in the menu, and let's see, Debug Configurations is what we're looking for. Click on that. Now this is our project, if you remember, and that is selected. Well, and you can see it here in this line as well. So look at the tabs. You need the debugger tab. Okay, here you see these two things. GDB is a GNU debugger. I think it goes back to when you first installed different thing. If you remember from those videos, there was something about, well, G++. It's the same thing. Okay, except DB. This is the debugger, and there is an initialization file here that you can choose to use with this, and that's what we're going to want to do. Right now, essentially, there's not one selected, but that file is going to have the extension of GDB in it. Okay, so we need to create this one and put something in there that says, okay, whenever you run the debugger, open an external console. It's really simple, but I'm going to take you through it step by step. One thing I would suggest, just so that you know where to look for it, and so that it by default is going to open to a location. So click Browse to see where that location is. Now this is where your Eclipse is running from. So if you remember back from our installation, way back when we installed there, this is where it was. But you can look at the path up here and say, you see that's that folder that's on our desktop. And then there's that subfolder, and then the Eclipse folder. So we're going to cancel because we just want it to be there so that it's going to be easy for us to access in the future, you know, to set this. So I'm going to just close and minimize this. So it's in this folder. We're going to go to that location, and it was in this subfolder and the Eclipse subfolder. So this is by default. See, there's our Eclipse.exe. This is by default where that opens to, because that's where we're running Eclipse from. And you need to create a text file, and it needs to have that that GDB in it as the extension. Now, this was one earlier in the video. I was using this one, but just to carry you through it step by step, you can right click, okay, and new, and it should let you do a text file here somewhere. Where is it? There it is, text document. So do that, and then you can name it whatever you want here. I suggest that you use something that's going to be easy for you to find in the future, like for other projects, like your C++ projects and stuff, so that you can create this workaround for them as well. Something that's easy for you to remember. And like in mine, I said use breakpoints. That's not exactly what it is, but that's going to be, I mean, that's why I included that. So I'm just going to, so that it's not the same file, I'm just going to call it use breakpoints 2, just so that we have a different file. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter to make sure I get that little thing to pop up. Now remember, it needs to have a GDB init extension. So what we want to do is change that, and Windows should fuss at you and say, well, it's not going to work if it's not got the right extension, blah blah. Okay, there it is. If you change the file, it might become unusable. Are you sure you want to change it? Yes, absolutely. So this is an empty file, and so we need to put something in it. It's very short, a single line. So you can right click on it and look for an editor, open with or whatever. See, fortunately, since I have Notepad++ installed, it will come up in this menu. So I'm just going to select that. You can use any text editor that you like. That's odd, that's showing up because I got the thing to say. Anyway, okay, edit. Okay, so it's bringing this up, and again, it's an empty file, nothing. It's right there at the very beginning. Notice how in between the two little videos, you know, when I was disabling everything, I went ahead and opened this file so that you could see it. Now, you ready to see how much typing you've got to do? There you go. That's all you need to do. Set space new dash console space on. That's it. So set space new dash console space on. You don't even have to hit return, just leave it just like that and you should be fine. Yeah, it looks just like that one. So we're right there. And then save it. Well, that's it. That's all you need to do with that. So we can close Notepad++ now. So we go back, and actually we're done here. Need to go back to Eclipse. And remember, it was under Run, Debug Configurations. We've got our project selected here. Then we go to the Debugger tab. And we can click Browse. And now we can see our file. And we'll use the one that we just created to do that. And now you're going to have a whole big long thing here. But see, at least it was easy for you to find because it was right there in that directory. And you named it something that's easy for you to remember, all right? So that's great. And we click Apply. We could go ahead and debug. I'm going to close, but go ahead and make sure you hit Apply and not just close, or it might not save that. So close. Now this is the exact same thing we had a minute ago. We're going to go for the green tick. Okay, did that. We're at the first breakpoint. Now, of course, now that we're using an external console, it's not going to, show up here as you remember from earlier in the video. Let's resume. It goes to the next breakpoint and resume. And just like in the video, we're still on this line, but nothing's happening. And that's because it's over here. And it has output my first program works. And so we can put in some other number. Well, this time maybe we'll put in 21 just for giggles. Okay, and hit enter. So we've made our input, and if we go back to our IDE, we've gone to the next breakpoint, and look, sure enough, it's right there. So there you have it. So if you're one of the people, I would hazard to guess one of the few people that's using Eclipse for this course in Windows, that's how you do the workaround. That's what the bug is, and that's what the workaround is for. And it just, in the end, it just makes it work a little bit more like Visual Studio with that external console. Alright, so that clears all of that up. Again, let's see, just a little bit of cleanup. I'm going to go ahead, let's finish. Let's go ahead and finish that up just to be thorough complete. I'm going to get rid of these breakpoints by double clicking on them. There we go. We can go back to our traditional view right there. I'll close this, exit Eclipse. Okay, there you go. So now you should, even if you're using Windows, but whatever your operating system, you should be able to use breakpoints, at the basic level, understand the mechanics of those so that you can debug your logical errors. This concludes another video for Introduction to Programming with C++, brought to you by LogiKomp. You can access the full course by going to the course homepage at logikomp.com/introcpp. While we are proud to offer this course free of cost to individuals, we do ask that if you continue to use the course, that you support its production and maintenance by making at least a small purchase from LogiKomp Domains and Hosting. You can pick up a custom domain, renewable annually, for around $10 at logikomp.com/hosting. Thank you.